Guys, if you're thinking about moving to Florida and you're wondering what someone like Lissette or I wished we would have known before we moved here, today's your lucky day.
You better get fired up.
Happy Monday. How are you?
Happy Monday, Joe. I'm good. It's kind of chilly today here in Florida, isn't it?
I didn't even realize it was going to be that cold. And I always go out in the morning and I went outside and I'm like, oh my God, I used to be acclimated to the Minnesota weather. Now I'm a wimp. So I had to go back in, put a sweatshirt on like a wimp. And I thought, well, nobody's going to know it's early. And of course, my neighbor saw me. So now he's judging me. He thinks I'm not a true Minnesotan. I'm a little embarrassed. But yes, it is getting chilly. Guys, if you're not in Florida and you're thinking it's always 77 and sunny, it usually is, but for about a month or two out of the year. Honestly, we love it. You're going to get weather. I think this morning when I went out, it was 50 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I don't know what it is now. It's probably mid 60s, something like that. But yeah, this is, in my opinion, the most beautiful weather that you can get all year, right? So,
Yeah.
So today we're talking about what you wished you'd known before you move into Florida. And I can tell you, being in the Army, I've lived in Texas, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Minnesota, Washington, and now Florida. Every state has its different things that you really didn't know about, that the culture of that area is really focused on. And so to hear it from somebody, man, I wished I'd seen videos like this before every place I've moved to. We're going to share some of the things that a lot of our clients and even us say they'd wish they'd known before moving to Florida. So Lissette, I'm going to let you kick it off. Give me something that somebody would want to know before they commit to moving down to the great state of Florida.
Well, one of the first questions I always ask is, what are the activities, the hobbies that you're interested in? What is that you're going to want to be doing? Because if you're interested in boating and beaches, we're a little bit spoiled down here. So when we have to drive 30, 40 minutes max to get to the ocean, that's pretty much the most I'll drive to drop my boat. But if you want something more inland, you're going to be looking at more an hour and a half, an hour, 45 minutes, maybe even a 2-hour drive to get to the coast.
Yeah.
So after being here for a while, that may become a little bit more of an inconvenience. So activities to me is first, it lets me put them more in a zone. Where do they want to be in?
I like that. And I think the next, biggest thing that comes into mind is taxes for me. I think that a lot of people, and it goes both ways, right? I use Wisconsin because it's the lowest taxes I've ever seen. And I'll use New York because I think it's the highest I've ever seen. Taxes are relative. So if you're coming from Wisconsin, you're going to think this place is ridiculously high. How would anybody move to Florida? I don't get it. If you're coming from New York, you think everything's on a discount, right? So it is all relative. It's not important whether it's high or not. What's important is that you know what you're getting into and you either like it or you don't like it, right? So really looking into the taxes, and when you're looking into property taxes, there are a lot of different things that influence the property taxes you're going to pay. So make sure that you look into the city and county taxes before you purchase, and you can see how much you're paying per $1,000 that you're purchasing for, right? Here's another thing that I didn't fully understand before I moved here. When you purchase a property, they're generally going to assess your tax value at about 80% of what you're paying for, right? So if you're, if you're paying $500,000 for a property, you're not going to pay taxes on 500. You're going to pay taxes on 400, which is about 80%, or I should say roughly, right? So your tax bill is going to be based on that. That's important to understand. Furthermore, if you homestead your property because you're living there, you're going to get a $50,000 deduction off of that $400,000, meaning your taxes are now based on $350,000. I wasn't aware of all that either. So that's good stuff to know. Lissette, what else you got?
One thing that's really important to keep in mind, a lot of people may not know this if you're not from Florida, is flood insurance. So you could be along the coast and be in an area like where I live in Torino, and we're not a flood zone, but I'm still pretty close to the coast. So I get to the beaches pretty quickly, but I don't have to worry about the additional expense of carrying flood insurance or even carrying it at a much higher rate, where some people may be crossing US 1 on the other side, closer to the east side. You're going to be facing higher flood insurance, and it is going to be mandatory if you're getting a mortgage in some cases. So that's something I try to educate my buyers on.
That's great. And that just kind of leads into the overall insurance discussion, right? Insurance down here is a lot different than a lot of other areas. In fact, probably every area of the United States. It's generally going to be higher. And there are big differences between condos and single family homes. There's a lot of differences in a lot of different areas, right? What kind of roof do you have? How old is the roof? Is the home going to be wood frame, or is it going to be concrete? Do you have hips or do you have gables on your roof? How much? What percentage? Do you have impact glass, impact doors? All those little things play into what you're going to pay for insurance. And it's really important that when you're looking at, hey, I'm approved for $500,000, right? There's a difference between home A going for 500 grand and home B going for 500 grand. Home A might be a new home, concrete, impact glass, all the things that an insurance salesman wants to see. And your insurance is going to be beautiful. It's going to be low. You go to the other one and it's got a wood frame and it's got an older roof and it's got a shingled roof and it's got no impact glass, no impact doors, whatever it is. And you might be paying 2-3 times the insurance on that. So knowing that before you go out and start to look at homes and just kind of being aware of that is really important down here as well. Lizette, what else you got?
So then also, are you a type person that needs to fly out often for business? Because if that's the case, you're going to be wanting to be closer to airports. One of the great things I think about Port St. Lucie is we have access to some pretty major airports within a short driving distance. We could be to West Palm within 45 to an hour. They have a lot of local and national flights that comes out of West Palm. Fort Lauderdale is another great airport. We have international airports just like Miami and Orlando. So a little bit of more further drive for Orlando or Miami, but within 2 hours, you get to where you got to go in the airport. So that's a question I ask. If it's something that you don't want to be driving more than 45 minutes, maybe you want to be a little bit more further south than north.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Especially, we get a lot of folks down here who are 50, 60, 70 years old. They got grandkids. They're going to be traveling every month or two. That's really important to know. So I like that you brought that one up. Another big difference from Minnesota for me to here, and if you're in a big city, maybe this isn't such a big difference for you, is the HOA prevalence down here, right? When I sold real estate up in St. Cloud, Minnesota, I can remember one HOA particularly, and it was in Waite Park, which was a neighboring city. And it was the only HOA I'd ever dealt with in like 5 years, 6 years of selling there. It just wasn't a big thing. And I did not know what I was doing in that HOA. I promise you, it was one sale. Now down here, I would guess 60, 70% of my sales are in HOAs. So it's a huge prevalence. Looking at the amenities you get, what don't you get? What are the rules? Can you have pets? Can I rent it out if I'm an investor? All of those things are very important things to understand before you pull that trigger, and making sure that you're working alongside someone who knows all those and is asking the right questions to set you up for success. It's pretty dang important. Lizette, what else you got?
One of the questions is one of those conversations I'm having now with a couple of my buyers that are coming down is, are you interested in a big city or smaller city? Are you needing to be more in that downtown area or more of the suburbs? That's going to change very differently if you're looking between Port St. Lucie and West Palm or Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So really trying to hone in on the type of lifestyle that you're looking for and what kind of needs when it comes to employment as well. It's good to discuss that.
I like that. And that kind of, makes me think about some of the differences in the different areas too. I'll give you 3 examples, right? In Minnesota, it's cold, right? So our feet get cold. If we lay on the floor and we're watching TV, we get cold. So we like carpet, man. We like upgraded carpet to keep us warm. Whereas down here, that's kind of a downgrade, right? People like luxury laminate or tile. That's what they want down here. So just kind of seeing that was a difference of mindset for me. Also, where I came from, if you had a metal roof, it was because you had a barn or some sort of animal building. It was kind of a low quality, low level building. And then you put a cheap metal roof on it, right? The nice roofs were the shingled roofs. Well, down here, shingle is kind of the base, and a metal roof is considered an upgrade. It helps you with insurance. It helps you with longevity. It helps you with resale. So I remember coming down, seeing 7-figure homes with these metal roofs, and my initial reaction was, what the heck is this? Why would you put a barn roof on a nice house? So I've kind of had to change my perception on that, right? Another one is, and this isn't a Florida thing. This is specifically in Port St. Lucie. I get a lot of people coming from out of area and they're like, Joe, I want some acreage in Port St. Lucie. Well, we get about, yeah, you're laughing already. We get about 240, 250,000 people. So let's just say 250,000 people here. And I looked this up like 2 months ago. An acre or more in Port St. Lucie, again, population 250. There were 7 properties available that had an acre or more. And when you look at the price tags, from memory again, they started around $600,000 for a not so exciting house that probably needs a ton of work, but you're getting an acre lot. Now, a lot of times they're not going to sell for that, but a lot of the sellers think, hey, I've got gold because nobody has this. So it's really tough to get a buyer who's going to come high enough and a seller who's going to come low enough to marry up and actually get the thing sold. So that's really challenging. Do you have options? Sure. You can go to, the outskirts of Fort Pierce. You can go to Okeechobee. But now you're living a half an hour, 45, 60 minutes outside of where most people want to be, the populated areas. So that was kind of an adjustment for me too. Lissette, what else do you have?
Another question I get is pools. A lot of times people are saying, "Oh, I would love to have a pool home,
Mm,
but you know what? I could put it in later. It's not going to be such a big expense." And I have to then get either a pool expert or try to educate a little bit of them on the cost of putting a pool in. I mean,
mm,
just on the cheap end, I could say you're going to be starting around 80 grand
yep.
for a basic pool. And a lot of times buyers are surprised with that price tag. So you really have to then question yourself, do I really want and need a pool home? Is that in the budget? If it is, great. Is it in the budget to put it in later? Or am I really going to have to then maybe not think about a pool and really get the home I'm looking for in that price point?
I love that you brought that up. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but wink, wink, if you're out of state and you're looking down here, like Lizette said, those lower end pools are going to start around 80. You might find them a little bit cheaper, but not a lot. But if you do the resale value of a pool, we see the difference of, home A compared to home B that's almost identical, but with a pool, the resale value is about 40, 50 grand more. So if you want a pool, financially, it makes way more sense to buy a home that already has the pool because you're going to spend maybe 60, 70 cents on the dollar, right? So last thing that I'm going to bring up, and then I'll turn it over to you to close us out, Lizette, is the need for an attorney. All right. When you're in New York and New Jersey, that's just the way it works up there. I've called agents before and I'm like, hey, tell me about this property. Where are you at in this process? Blah, blah, blah. And they don't know anything because that's the person who gets it to, I wouldn't even say under contract. They get two people interested and then they turn it over to the attorneys and the attorneys take care of the rest. And the realtor's kind of out in the weeds, right? They don't really know what's going on until the thing closes. It's much different here, right? Down here, we don't need attorneys. We have title closers who do that work for us. You can certainly have an attorney, but it's an added cost that probably 95% of people down here, I'm guessing, but 95% of people down here just aren't going to use. You can. I just want you to know that it's an additional expense and you're going to have somebody closing for you anyway. Here, the realtors have a lot bigger role in the transaction, making sure everything's getting taken care of. And they cover a lot of the things, not all the things, but a lot of the things that traditionally an attorney up there would take care of. I'll tell you also with that is up in New York and New Jersey, a closing date is kind of a wish and a hope. Like, hey, we're going to close roughly February 15th, right? And then about a week or two before, whenever they're ready, maybe it's the 15th of February, maybe it's not, the two attorneys will finally wake up one day and say, hey, we're finally ready. We're going to close next Tuesday. And that's just kind of how it magically works. That sounds crazy to me because I'm a man of a schedule, man. I like to stick to my schedule. So for me, that sounds like a nightmare. But down here, when your closing date is February 15th, your closing date is February 15th. You are contractually bound to closing on that day. It doesn't mean things don't happen, but if things do happen, in 99% of instances, that other party could pull out if you're not ready to go, right? Like it's a big deal that you're ready. So that's something that I've seen a lot, specifically, I'm picking on the Northeast here. A lot of folks up there just aren't used to. Lizette, close us out.
So yeah, moving from one state to another is a huge decision, and there's so much information to know and to research. And having a good agent on your side can do the legwork for you. And I know for one, if I think that maybe Port St. Lucie isn't a great location for this specific buyer, I try to go out of my way and find another agent that's an expert in the area that will fit their needs. So don't be afraid to talk to your agent, say that you're also thinking about another area because they could help you connect with an expert in that area, that
Yep.
property you're looking for. Yeah.
Great point. I love that. Well, guys, if you've got other questions or ideas for future videos, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to put in the comments and we'll absolutely take care of any of those questions or put up new videos for you. I appreciate you joining us. Until next time.